being somebody who's like a biodynamic farmer, what have you learned about our relationship with nature, with soil, and the true nature of self and how it intercorrelates? I know we touched on some things, but it's very unique, the plethora of different ways in which you create this massive business and you have a farm and you're like super into your own spiritual practice and do ceremonies, and like there's a lot of different things that you do not fit the mainstream narrative or picture of any type of person. You are you. You're like one of one, right? And so I'd love for you to dive into a little bit about how it's what you've learned in the biodynamic farming process about the nature of self and how we're connected with nature on that deep fundamental level.
I think it's the most poignant part of my life is really getting the biodynamic perspective. At the end of the day, and I think mothers know it best, it's about stewarding. It's about taking care of something and knowing you're the steward of it. You don't own it, but you're the steward. There's a level of honor and reverence that comes from tending a garden and really understanding or understanding all the components that make things thrive and create stability and balance, and ultimately reaps the highest rewarding food, which is ultimately going to feed us, and it's going to go back into the land. That energy is the cornerstone of biodynamics. It's understanding where we are in the world, understanding our cosmology, understanding the seasons, understanding the waxing and waning of the moon, understanding that the cosmic cow is the sacred cow, is the sacred, fuel for the land, preparing for the winter, taking the manure, burying it in bullhorns under the ground, digging them up in springtime. In there you have the fulvic and humic. It basically turns into black gold. Learning how to spread that over the entire garden, working with crystals and herbs and all those different preparations. That is really at the cornerstone. It's a spiritual process. It's not how can I get the best yield. It's how can I create something based on the cosmic law and the cosmic forces. And so there's so many people that are into, their astrology and their gene keys and human design and all these things. All of those are very similar coded systems within biodynamic farming. And Steiner's way of cultivating the child was through the practice of learning how to tend the garden and how to understand what was happening above us in the sky clock. And so it's really, I would say, it's the cosmic genesis, the cosmogenesis of earth and sky, with the human right in the middle who's stewarding the plant intelligence and the animal intelligence of all the sentient beings. It's freaking phenomenal stuff. Mm-hmm. I highly recommend someone taking a biodynamics course. There's Demeter courses throughout the world. I put a lot of information out there on biodynamics. There's a lot of books on biodynamics. I would definitely start with someone writing about biodynamics as opposed to Steiner's perspective. It's I would say it's a little bit difficult for people to get at first. But for me, that was the main cultivar within my ethos of really, embodying that truly and bringing it to my everyday life.
Yeah, and to see the laws of nature that you're working with, and to be like a steward and see how much of a steward that you can be, and how you're working with the laws of within the laws of nature and with the laws of nature. And like, I'm sure that's just impacted your understanding of everything else that you're doing in life, from the fundamental, like understanding roots and soil and like how that metaphorically translates to everything else you want to create in your life.
Totally. And not going against it.
Right.
That's the whole thing. Everything today is linear. It's left angles, right angles. It's all these different edges. That's not our cosmic law. We have to flow with nature. Getting into Steiner's work led me to Victor Schauberger's work. Do you know Victor Schauberger? He was an Austrian wizard, Austrian just like Steiner, and he was the water wizard. He's the guy that figured out implosionary energy, vortex energy. Are you familiar with implosionary energy versus explosion? This is how springs work. This is how the blood in our body works. This is how trees get water to the leaves. It's through implosionary energy. Forces like burning gasoline or coal, those are explosionary energies, right? You're creating an explosion, you control that explosion, and it pushes a piston or something like that.
So combustion.
Right? That's a one-time energy, and you reap the benefit of that. You reap the benefit of that explosion. You capture it. Implosion is nature's reaction to explosion, and very fascinating. And that was another telltale sign for me of understanding nature. For example, when you go to like certain places in the world and there's waterfalls, have you ever seen like the salmon or trout jump up the streams? Have you seen that before? That's a phenomenon, right? We don't talk much about it, but how is that happening? How is that salmon getting up creek? How's that trout going up that waterfall, that 12-foot waterfall, 14-foot waterfall? Well, what it does, it goes into a hypnotic state and it taps into the force of the water coming down. Nature's responding to that. That's called implosion, and they shoot up. It's like a channel. They just go right up into that. And so like understanding that there are forces in this realm outside of what we learned in, chemistry class or science class or whatever that is, whatever all that stuff is, it has really opened me up and opened up my heart to like understanding that we're surrounded by magic 24/7. It's just like, and it's not just being woo-woo with crystals or anything like that. Like, it's really like understanding the unique subtle forces of our world. And that's like where you practice alchemy. And you talk to any like master magician or master alchemist, they're working with subtle forces. They're not, it's like scalar technology, understanding moon technology, understanding Ormus technology, which is another thing that I'm very much into in terms of gardens and stuff like that. These are hidden subtle energies that are so beautiful once you start unlocking into your own realm. Because the true philosopher's stone is not a bunch of maniac scientists trying to use mercury to turn lead into gold, right? And killing themselves and poisoning themselves. A true philosopher's stone is the cosmic alchemy turning lead within you into gold. And that's the whole biodynamic way of thinking. It's how do we evolutionize ourselves to get out of the material mechanistic thinking and free ourselves to unlock ourselves. It's phenomenal stuff. Hey, you asked for it, man.
I know I did.
Sorry. That's my core passion, right?
Yeah.
Where this topic right here is another core passion of mine. I can go on forever. And I just love it. That takes me to being a child.